Long before he was labeled a psychopath, before his name struck fear across the country, he was just a boy, a child born into a nightmare. His first cries echoed not in a warm, loving home, but in a crumbling apartment on the edge of a forgotten American town. The walls were thin, the nights were cold, and love was something he only saw on TV. His mother was a shadow, always gone, chasing men or the next fix. His father, a ghost. Some say he disappeared before the boy turned 5. Others whisper that he never existed at all. What's certain is that this boy grew up invisible, unwanted, and unheard. At school, he sat alone. His clothes were dirty, his eyes distant. Teachers reported strange behavior, drawing pictures of mutilated animals, whispering to himself, laughing at things no one else found funny. By the time he was 8, he had already killed. A cat, neighbors claimed, then a dog. When confronted, he stared blankly, as if he couldn't understand why anyone was upset. The authorities were called, but the system was overwhelmed and underfunded. Another lost kid in a dying town. Nobody helped, nobody cared. He watched his community rot, factories closing, crime rising, drug addicts on every corner. Violence was normal. Screams at night were just background noise. He learned that power came from fear, and that pain was the only thing that made him feel alive. At 10, he set his foster brother's bed on fire while he was sleeping. The boy survived, barely. Our psycho was sent to a juvenile facility, where he learned how to be even worse. Surrounded by predators, he became one. The counselors called him emotionless. The other kids called him a demon. He had no empathy, no remorse. Just a hunger for control, a desire to watch the world burn, one piece at a time. This wasn't just a troubled child. This was the birth of a monster, shaped by neglect, forged in chaos, and ignored by a system that should have stopped him before it was too late. But no one did, and what came next would shock the nation. By the time he turned 16, the monster was no longer hiding. His first documented crime wasn't just murder. It was a performance. A teenage girl found dead in an abandoned warehouse, tied up with barbed wire, her body staged like a grotesque art piece. There was no clear motive, no personal connection. Just a sick display of dominance and control. Carved into the wall beside her was a message written in her blood. "Do you see me now?" That was his signature, his twisted cry for attention. For someone who spent his entire childhood invisible, being seen became his obsession, but not in the way normal people crave attention. He wanted the world to watch him destroy it. Investigators believed that first kill was only the beginning. Over the next year, 4 more bodies appeared across state lines. Each victim was different, young, old, male, female, but the method was always the same: capture, torment, kill, and stage. He wasn't just taking lives, he was crafting horror stories. He wanted his crimes to haunt people, and they did. His obsession with fear became his fuel. He began sending taunting letters to newspapers, drawing diagrams of his kills, writing manifestos about how the world was nothing but chaos, and he was simply playing his part. He believed fear was the purest emotion. He believed control was the highest power. The media dubbed him the artist of death. The public panicked. The FBI launched a manhunt, but he was always one step ahead. When he was finally caught, it wasn't a dramatic takedown. He turned himself in, calmly walking into a police station and handing over a bloodied knife, smiling. The trial was a media circus. Psychiatrists couldn't agree. Was he insane or evil? Some said he was a classic sociopath with no ability to feel empathy. Others believed he was fully aware of his actions and simply didn't care. He gave chilling interviews, speaking of his crimes with pride, almost like an author discussing his novels. But the justice system failed to grasp the full extent of his darkness. They thought locking him up would end the nightmare. They were wrong. Because the prison he was sent to, America's filthiest, most broken institution, wasn't the end of his story. As the manhunt intensified and the body count rose, experts scrambled to understand one burning question: Was he born evil, or was he created? Psychiatrists, criminal profilers, and neuroscientists were brought in. They combed through his childhood records, therapy notes, prison transcripts, and, most disturbingly, his personal journals. What they found was a mind unlike any they had seen before. Cold, calculated, hyper-intelligent, but also deeply fractured. In one entry, he wrote, "When I was 5, I realized pain was louder than love. So I became the scream." Some experts argued he was the product of extreme neglect and trauma, a perfect storm of abuse, abandonment, and social decay. Others disagreed, pointing to his manipulative charm, his ability to mimic emotion, and his deliberate planning, classic signs of a high-functioning psychopath. But what unsettled everyone was how self-aware he was. He didn't see himself as a victim. He saw himself as an evolution, a correction to the broken world. "I'm not a monster," he once told an interviewer. "I'm just the mirror you're too scared to look into." Eventually, the end came. Not with a bullet, not with a bang, but with a whisper. He was found in an abandoned church, surrounded by candles and newspaper clippings of his own crimes. He didn't resist. In fact, he smiled, like he had completed his masterpiece. Some say he wanted to be caught. That the escape, the killings, the fear, it was all part of his final message. A sick, twisted performance designed to make the world watch. And remember, he was returned to a federal facility, this time under constant surveillance, no windows, no shadows to hide in. But the damage was already done. His story became legend. His face turned into a symbol on protest signs, some calling for prison reform, others warning of unchecked evil. True crime documentaries exploded. Books were written. Debate raged on. Was he insane or just pure evil? In the end, the truth might never be clear. But his legacy? Haunting, permanent. A reminder of what happens when a broken mind grows in a broken world, and no one is there to stop it. Because monsters aren't always born. Sometimes they're built. And this one was built in America's darkest corners.